to be able to introduce to you our speaker for today, Jenny LeFebvre. And Jenny's talk, now get this, is vulnerability, kryptonite or superpower. So Jenny comes to us as a very energetic woman, and she used to be in corporate America, and I think she's going to tell you a little bit more about that. And like so many people, the rat race got to her, and she decided to become the best person she could be by finding out who that person was. She's volunteered a huge amount and has found great energy. She's going to share that with us, and I want you to give her a warm welcome.
Good morning, successful thinkers. Good morning, entrepreneurs, light workers. It's such an honor to be here this morning to speak to you. Can you hear me? Is that better?
You're fine.
So I'm totally vulnerable right now. I'm very uncomfortable doing this, but that's okay. I'm going to lean right into it, and I'm going to befriend my vulnerability and hopefully share some really great bullet points so that you can also learn how to befriend vulnerability and use it as your superpower to really create some amazing connections, authentic, real connections in your life, and help you step into new business ventures and collaborate with the community and the people in this room and the people that continue to show up here. So I'm going to start off with just the basic, well, first I want to start off with thanking, because that's a big one. I want to thank Bonnie for inviting me to speak. Thank you very much. And Ken for helping me. And then Robbie's not here today, which is such a bummer because I love that man so much, but he has been mentoring me and I really appreciate his mentorship. And then of course Miss Taylor, hello back there. I love Miss Taylor, she's amazing. She's the one that actually got me involved with Successful Thinkers and all sorts of other things that I do now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So, we have a lot of human desires, and they're basic human desires. Some of the human desires are to be seen, to be heard, and to belong, right? So those are pretty vulnerable, because when we get ourselves in a position where we need to be seen, we're putting ourselves out there. There could be a lot of things that could happen. We could be rejected. I'm not worthy. How could I possibly think I can stand up here and you're all going to believe what I have to say? Oh my God, I'm not an expert in this. I own it in my own personal life, but I'm not a coach about it. So there's a lot of vulnerability that comes with putting ourselves out there to be seen, to be heard, and to belong. But because we're all here doing that, we're leaders. And so we have to really be grateful and proud of ourselves because we're standing up, because we believe in something better than what we're doing now to make our lives better and our communities better. So to be heard, to be seen, and to belong. There's a quote by Albert Camus, and it's called, "To know oneself, one should assert oneself." And that's pretty brave, and it's pretty vulnerable. To assert yourself is a vulnerable moment. You don't know what's going to happen. You're going into uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, but when we identify that the uncertainty is where the rest of us is, we actually become really, really powerful. Uncertainty is where the rest of us is. We won't know who we are until we step into uncertainty. So I dive in now. I'm like going head first, because I love not knowing what's going to happen next. Thank you for your smile. So I want to talk about the perceptions of vulnerability. There's a lot of perceptions of vulnerability, and a lot of time the perception is not such a great one. There's a lot of heaviness around vulnerability. So what are some of the, what do you think of when you think of someone who's vulnerable? What's a characteristic that comes to mind of somebody who's vulnerable? Anybody?
Nervous.
Nervous.
Someone who's very quiet, humble.
Quiet, humble. Anybody else?
Oh.
Bonnie? Weak. Yep. Any other ones? Insecure, I had on my list. I had exposed. Sensitive. Mine is sensitive. I'm super, super sensitive. I'm the first one to cry. I actually teach people how to cry. It's funny, I do. My girlfriends are like, it's not a party till Jenny cries. Because I'm always crying. But that's because when I cry, there's some truth there. There's something that I'm hearing that that person is sharing with me that is so profound that it breaks through my core and light shines in there, and it is my truth too. And I empathize and I sympathize with that person, and I know exactly what they're going through, and that's my truth. And I just allowed myself to be vulnerable. When they see that I'm vulnerable in that moment with them, we feel safe. because we connected and they trust each other. And that's where the authentic relationships become the foundation to the next step in our lives. So I love to cry. I don't know if I'm going to do it today, but we'll see. I got another 25 minutes, so we'll see what happens. So moving into the perception of expanding our idea around vulnerability. So vulnerability could be, so in successful thinkers, when we think about who we are and we want to show up as positive people, right? We talk about being positive. People want to hang out with people who are positive, right? We don't want to be around a lot of like, oh, I don't know, I want to be able to do this, and they're not going to like me, and, you know. We want to be around people who are confident, bubbly. Not everybody has as much energy as I have, but still, be positive, right? So when we think about the idea of vulnerability, let's change our perception from it being weak and sensitive and fragile and uncertain. And let's look at it as being a strength. So some of the strengths of vulnerability are courage, compassion, possibility, accessibility, willingness. Willingness is a really big one for me. When I was in corporate retail, I was a manager for a retailer, a big retailer here. I would always tell my employees, there's a difference between will and skill. I can teach you skill, but I cannot teach you will. You have to have the will to step up and do it yourself. I can teach you all the skill I can teach you about this industry, but there's nothing I can do to make you willing to learn it and step into this role and do your best. So willingness is a really big one when it comes to vulnerability. And I found that the foundation for all of these great things is vulnerability. You cannot step into courage if you are not a vulnerable person. First, you have to be vulnerable. You have to say either, a lot of times, enough is enough. I can't take this anymore. I'm done. And have the courage to step forward. Or you might have the community around you to say, you don't have to get to enough is enough. You can actually just be with the people who support you and love you and let them help lift you up so that you can take that next step forward, right? So there's different perceptions around vulnerability, and I think in this group especially, we can raise the vibration around what vulnerability is, lean into it, and really go out there in our communities and help people step into what they think is scary and actually befriend it and be really powerful about it. Does everyone agree with me? Do we have that energy in this room to do that? Yeah. And the knowledge? So my personal story is that I was in retail. I was a store manager for a big retailer, and I like to break the rules a lot, and that's not something you're supposed to do in corporate America. And we had a planner, and you're supposed to follow the planner, and you're not really supposed to, you know, stray away from the planner because you got to look like all the other stores, right? So my community was in Cupertino, and Cupertino, there's a huge Asian and Indian population. And so the holiday is Diwali. Do you know about Diwali? It's the Festival of Lights. Such a beautiful festival. I love Diwali. Well, we didn't have anything to celebrate Diwali in the binder. It was all Christmas and Easter, and that's wonderful, but what about this community? They deserve something. This is their community. This is their store. So I created this really great display for candles and lights, because it's all about the Festival of Lights, and made it all beautiful. And my candle sales were like out the roof, like they were crazy. People were like, what are you doing over there? You got like some insane candle sales. I'm like, nothing, I'm not doing too much, you know. Here comes the bigwigs walking through the door. I was like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. What is this? This doesn't belong here. You gotta take this apart. And I did, they made me take it apart. They didn't care that the numbers were good. They just didn't like the fact that I went against the planner, because I knew my community, and I knew what impressed my community, I knew what inspired my community, and I was reaching out to my community doing what was right for them, because I was listening to them. I was listening to them and listening to their stories and asking them questions about their culture and what made them happy and what they wanted to buy. So she sets me down, she says, you know, Jenny, you're replaceable. I said, okay, then you can replace me. And I left. I gave my 2 weeks notice and I left. And that was really a big step for me, because I was so uncertain. This is all I had ever known. I don't have a college degree. I never went to college. I'd only known sales. I'd only been in sales my whole life. What am I going to do? All I know how to do is make pretty displays and talk to people and connect to people and sell some stuff and make their houses look pretty. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I left that and I said, you know what, it's okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know the kind of woman I wanna be. And that was a big one for me. I don't know what I wanna do, but I know who I wanna be. So I started volunteering, and then through my volunteering, I got back into community. And I realized I love being in community. I love being in circles of women, listening to stories, supporting women, finding out their truth, helping them step into their truth. That is my passion. I love it. It fuels me. I love Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. So that was my story of stepping into vulnerability. I am so grateful I did. I am so grateful I did. Because now I love my life. I can say I absolutely love my life. And I love that I get to be in community here, and now I'm going to be an ambassador here in Fremont. I'm going to be helping with getting the speakers, and that's really exciting because that means a lot here in this community. So we're going to talk about a couple of bullet points for vulnerability, and the first one is, obviously, if you haven't heard it already, it's courage. Have courage to step into your vulnerability. And how do we find our courage? How do we identify that we need to be courageous? Faith, passion, and confidence. Okay? If you have faith, nothing will stop you. You believe there is an innate intelligence inside of us. It's God, it's the universe. For me, it's all of them, it's nature even. I have faith that I am doing the right thing. I know I'm on a mission. Passion, I'm passionate about it. So if you have passion, you have courage. Nothing can stop you if you're passionate about what you're doing. And confidence, know what you're doing. Get clear on what you're doing, define what you're doing, because when you're confident, it doesn't matter if they don't believe what you're talking about, they believe you, right? They believe what you're doing. So the best way to lean into vulnerability, the uncertainty of a new project that you're working on, a new customer that you're working with, somebody in your relationship. You can apply this to relationships too. It's not about business as well. It's about building relationships. It's stepping into courage. The foundation to courage is vulnerability. You allow yourself to identify what makes me feel nervous. Oh, I'm not going to be nervous. I'm just going to go right to passion because I'm super passionate about it. The next one is compassion. Compassion is a big one. I had a hard time doing that for myself. Being compassionate to yourself and being compassionate with others. So being able to sit down and talk to someone and listen to their story and then tell you, I got cancer for the second time and I'm afraid to die. And listening to their story and holding their hand, building that connection with them, listening to them, sharing your own scary story about something. Having compassion for yourself and for others is a big one. Understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness. You have to be able to forgive yourself for whatever happened so that you can move forward and step into the next better version of yourself. I made a mistake. I own it. I forgive myself. I'm human. I'm not an iron woman. We're not iron women and men. We're just human. So forgive ourselves and be gentle and have compassion and understanding for the people that we're doing business with, for the people in our family, our friends, our community. Have compassion. The next one, I'm probably going really fast here, but that's okay. The next one is safety. This is one that I'm actually working on for myself right now, creating safety. It's really important when you are vulnerable to feel safe. And one of the things I'm learning is that my story is not for everyone. I love to talk about my story, and I share it with anybody who wants to listen. You want to hear my story again? Kids probably heard my story like a million times. So your story is really, really special. Honor your story. It is not made for every person to hear. And how do you know when you shouldn't share your story with someone? Well, you give them a little bit. Don't tell them everything. Just give them a little nugget and see what they do with it. You'll know. You can feel it. You'll know. You'll know when they're either trying to take advantage of you. There's predators out there. They're going to try to take advantage of us if they feel that we're vulnerable. But if we're clear about what we're doing and we have defining boundaries within what we're doing, we will not be able to be taken advantage of because we've created safety and we didn't share everything. We just shared a little bit and let them do whatever they wanted with it, and then we give them a little bit more, And now we're creating safety, and we're creating a foundation. So really important to create safety and have some clear boundaries about what you're working on and what you're doing in your life and who you want in your life, more importantly. Who are the kind of people that you're calling into your life? What are you calling in? The last one is connection, of course, and that's why we're all here, because we love to connect and be in community with one another. And that is about listening, and that is about sharing. So I just really invite you all to think about vulnerability as the foundation to courage, to compassion, to safety and connection. You cannot have compassion if you weren't vulnerable yourself at one point or another, because you wouldn't be able to understand what that person was going through or why they're afraid. And how can you help them? By listening and connecting with them. So, we're going to watch a fun video. Some of you may have already seen it. Well, before we do that, does anybody have any questions? Any questions about vulnerability and courage, and or you want to share something like you were vulnerable about? No? Okay, so courage, compassion, safety, and connection. Okay, we're going to watch this video.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out, you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut, and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers, because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. But over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
Isn't that great? I love that. Have you seen that before? I love that. So, what probably happened was those guys were probably drunk because it's a music festival, but that's okay. He still was courageous enough to get up and dance like a maniac. But it's just the perfect video because it shows that you do have to be courageous to step up and do something different, right? You do have to have the courage to not worry and have the self-worth inside to believe that you are enough. You are enough. You can do it. You can totally do whatever you put your mind to.